Good morning. Good morning. I am Catalina. I am functional medicine practitioner, uh, transitioned from internal medicine about 5 years ago. And I am interviewing. I love to see people that have changed their lives and see what made them do that and describe their journey so that we can help other people reach their maximum potential. Because, I heard it said it is un-American not to reach your maximum potential. I really love that, right?
Yeah, that's an awesome
So
quote.
today we have a very special guest because he's so young and he achieves so much, like more than some people in a lifetime. And we want to know his secrets. So please welcome here, Alex Duta. Welcome,
Thanks so
Alex.
much for having me here. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be on this podcast with you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I've, kind of watched your journey for a few years now. And
Yeah.
it's been like, wow, 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 more and more. So I really love to have you here.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell everyone basically what made you start this journey. What happened and where were you when you started? And how do you feel now compared to then?
Yeah. Yes, I think to give your viewers some context, obviously you've known me for maybe 15 to 20 years now. So you've known me from adolescence. And, you know, as you know, there was part of my life where I was prime time as a teenager. And then I went into entrepreneurship and, stress and unhealthy eating habits and all of this caused me to balloon up quite a bit, and I remember a lot of times I would come to your office and you'd be like, hey, you're up like, 40 pounds. What's going on? You got to get rid of this. Or cholesterol is this and stuff like that. And I didn't really take health seriously for a big part of my life because, as being a young person, you feel invincible. Like you could do whatever. And as a young entrepreneur, you're constantly rewarded for certain actions, but being in good health, you're never really rewarded for it, right? You're rewarded for, the business decisions that you make, the money that you make, the, relationships that you build. Like that's what society rewards you for. So, yeah, you went to the yearly checkup and you went to the doctor and you got some blood work and yeah, you're a little overweight and, I was happy in my skin. I mean, I had like a very high, I guess, personal self-esteem. So never really cared about that. And to put context, like I think at my heaviest, I was like 240 pounds, whereas like where my frame, in adolescence was like 150, right? So call it 90 pounds of extra weight. And then as far as like everything in health, like at the time, I was eating fast food or whatever I could find, if I could find anything, working, 20-hour days, like most entrepreneurs, sleeping very little, drinking, on the weekends with friends and stuff like that more than I should. So yeah, just a recipe for absolutely everything that shouldn't have happened. So, but what sparked the change, and as you know, is COVID hit, and obviously I was demographically and statistically not supposed to be high risk for COVID, right? I was a 20 some year old, and at the time, my wife was pregnant with my daughter, so a lot of exciting things happening there. So when I first took on COVID, it was like, oh, this is just going to be a breeze. Got COVID, called you, you told me to take a Z pack or whatnot, rest and hydrate, and we thought everything would be fine and dandy, but it actually ended up not being fine and dandy, right? Ended up, getting blood clots within my lungs, ended up being in the hospital. That wasn't fun. Trapped, I think, for a couple weeks. I think it was like 2 weeks or something like that. And then afterwards, there's like a 2 to 3 month road to recovery post that. So if you're asking me like what's the thing that sparked the change, I would say it's that. I think it was specifically a moment 2 days before Christmas where I was in the hospital with COVID. And again, it's quarantined. You can't like come in and out of the hospital, no family there and stuff like that. Most of my journey was me, myself, and the nurses. And I was FaceTiming my wife, who was at Oakbrook Mall, which is actually right behind me right now. And my wife just starts running. She's pregnant again, 7 months, and she just starts running. I'm like, babe, why are you running? She's like, I don't know. Everybody else is running at the mall. Later, come to find out there was a shooting at the mall, right? And I was sitting here in the hospital, right? FaceTime my wife, knowing that I'm not going to make Christmas dinner and New Year's and stuff like that. And all of this stuff is going on. And that was like, I think the like biggest, like, oh crap, like I'm like literally helpless. I can't do anything. I can't provide for my family, yada, yada. So coming out of the whole COVID journey, I told myself, like, look, I don't care about the wealth. I don't care about the money. I don't care about anything else. I am willing to give everything up to be healthy again. And started focusing on all kinds of stuff, which was primarily like the reason most people told me I got so sick was, one, my body was weak because of the way I was treating my body. Two, I was vitamin D deficient. And three, I was overweight. So from multiple sources, that just seemed to be why my body wasn't able to fight that. So I was like, look, I'm just going to get back in shape, get strong, and never be able to be susceptible to this again. And I thought it was a trade-off. I thought it would be like, I was like, literally like, I'll give up the wealth for this. But what in fact happened, like fast forward later, is the healthier I got, the better I showed up. And like life since then, like, yeah, my health kind of got back into shape, but like every other component of my life, from like the energy I could pour into my family to the energy I could pour into my businesses, just exponentially grew. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but that's the spark of what, changed everything.
Wow. Yeah. So it's so like, whoa, like that wake up call, like something really drastically changed for you in order for you to make a drastic change. I like how one of my favorite quotes from Jim Rohn is like, nothing great was ever produced in the comfort zone. Right. So,
Yep.
God, the universe had to put you in a really uncomfortable zone for you to get out of that comfort zone and really explode everything. Because, right, it's like a wheel of life, right? It's not a star of life. If you're not really good in all aspects of life, the wheel is not a wheel, so it doesn't, go faster and more distance. So amazing, amazing. So it's true. People don't have to give up one to get the other. It
Yeah.
actually works together.
Yeah, and now, and I've formulated my thesis now when it comes to how I view life as the integrated life. And I think that a lot of times people talk about burnout as like you go super hard and you try to live life at its max, and that's why people burn out. I actually think people burn out when there's an imbalance. And if like, think about it this way, if you want to go 100% into something, like in society, we're taught from school, it's like, good grades, hot girlfriend, sleep, whatever, pick one, right? It's like, no, it's not a pick one. You could actually have it all. You burn out when you have a lot of one thing and not enough of another thing, right? So I think right now I believe in, you can go all in life. My 4 pillars of life are health, wealth, love, and spirituality, right? So like, as long as you treat your health life to the same standard as you treat your wealth life and your love life and your spirituality life, then you won't burn out. But the minute you kind of not focus on one to the equal extent that you focus on the other, that's when things get disproportionate. So if you want to be an elite entrepreneur, great. You also have to be an elite person in your health, and you also have to be an elite person in your relationship with God and your relationship with your family and such. And if you don't, that's where you get the entrepreneurs that make 9-figure exits and then commit suicide because they don't find, or they die of cancer like Steve Jobs, or. So yeah.
Totally. Absolutely. And without health, really nothing matters and nothing will move, forever and in the right direction. And you're not going to have the influence that you could, because I think now you're such a powerful, you're a leader, basically. And you can say that, and um, you can encourage, you can spark interest in so many young people to really go do it the right way, because it is the right way. I mean, there are many wrong ways, but definitely you knocked out the right way. So you said that before you felt invincible. And what do you think, what advice would you give to somebody that's just going about their, life and, just, going to school, maybe go, get a job and then, try to live life to the
Yeah.
max. What would you advise them before something bad happens?
I think the biggest realization is like young people have this gem when it comes to health during a certain part of your life. Like, right, they say like you build the most muscle that you'll ever build between the ages like 15 and 20 some, right? So if you're young, you tend to say, hey, I'm invincible, so therefore I can go do all the crazy things that young people do, right? Let's go out binge drinking, let's go out eat whatever, let's have the binge eating or whatever. But what people don't realize is sure that invincibility makes you maybe more resistant to the symptoms of the negatives in the short run, but there's an opportunity cost of the long run, right? There's investments that you could be making that you don't make. And I see it even now. So like, I mean, I'm still young. I'm 28 and I flipped the switch, right? And I'm a lot healthier, but I do know for a fact that like had I made this decision 15 years ago, I would build a lot more muscle, a lot better. My endurance would be a lot better, right? Like it took me 2 years and I got my VO2 max like 54, which was super exciting, but it's like I'm still not performing how I would have if I would have started 10 to 15 years ago. So for anybody young out there that's listening and saying, hey, yeah, I'm invincible, or I wouldn't say invincible, but like I don't get penalized. It's literally that. Like when you're young, you get get out of jail free card where it's like you don't get penalized for the bad stuff. And then when you get older, your body penalizes you more for it. But it's like, okay, well, because you're invincible, use that opportunity to make some investments and think of the opportunity costs, right? Every single pound you build of muscle will pay dividends in the long run. Every single extra, point you get on your VO2 max or our cardiovascular endurance will pay dividends in the long run. And in fact, if you listen to like Andrew Huberman and stuff like that, people die. And why do people die is, young, it's, cardiovascular disease, and it's directly correlated longevity to VO2 max. The second thing is, muscle mass that's linked to all of the immobility and the miserable things that you have in the future. And then the third thing is purpose, right? And if you like saw the study on the blue zones and stuff like that, it's like the people that live the longest and live the fullest and all these little zones where people live over 100 years, it's purpose. So I think if you're a young person listening to this, like tinker around and enjoy life as much as possible, play around with all these different things, experience all these different things to find your true purpose, and take care of your cardiovascular engine and your functional engine, which would be like your strength. And if you do that, I mean, it'll pay dividends in the long run.
Absolutely. The right, yeah, it's the changes start so early on that you cannot say that you put a blanket over it and say, oh, nothing will happen, because I'm so young, my body takes care of it. I work out, so the bad food is gonna just not have any influence on my health. Oh, no, 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 no. Just, yeah, all those toxins that are maybe forever chemicals, well, those are going to be in you.
Yep.
And those are going to cause, problems.
I I also think there needs to be a massive wake up call to the American parents of the world. Like as a parent now, I realize like, and my wife was the one who had the most influence upon Sophia because she's more stay at home than I am. But like, you know, don't allow your kids to subscribe to the marketing of the world where, like my child doesn't eat Cocoa Puffs and Happy Meals. Like my daughter eats steak, right? And it's like you can make that change and you can be that beacon of life. And sure, I'm not saying we're here perfect and we're eating everything absolutely clean. And yeah, I'm not getting my cruciferous vegetables like you said, Grisha, right? But it's like overall, I think it's also the parents being the beacon. And that's the other thing. If you're a parent listening to this thing and you can't tell your kid to not smoke if you smoke. You can't tell your kid to build muscle if you don't build muscle and stuff like that. Like these aren't things that kids learn by being told to, because I was told to as a kid to do all these things, but I didn't necessarily see those examples around me. I think it's parents, it's time to wake up. It's time to be a beacon to our next generations, to our future. So
Absolutely. Kids do what they see, not what they are told. That's for
exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
And that shapes them through life anyway. So it's Yeah, yeah. That's another story. I mean, all this food in schools is like horrible, and parents definitely need to understand that. Again, these are horrible for their children. So knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? How could you have done something different before COVID hit?
Yeah. So part of the change and the hardest part that I still battle with today, and the root of every single change happens on an identity level, right? So like you can't go and do the diet and the exercise and the supplements and the whatever until you change your identity, right? So like part of the way I was able to do this is I just identify. I was like, hey, if there's people out there that could identify, and maybe this is not super politically correct for the podcast, but there's people out there that could identify as a different sex, or they could identify as a different religion, or they could identify as a different dot dot dot, right? So I'm like, if those people could do that, what if I could just identify as something different and trick my mind into it? And that was like the success of the whole thing. As I identified as an athlete, picked up the sport of Spartan racing, right? Which is this like cardiovascular and functional strength combination, right? You run everything up to a half marathon to a marathon with obstacles, and it's fun. And then I just would then ask myself, is this meal going to help me get here? Is not training today going to help me get here? And that's what got me there. So rewind, what I wish I would have learned about the fact that everything roots to identity earlier on. And it's one of those things, it's a soft skill that, especially coming from, like you and I come from Romanian backgrounds. Romanian backgrounds are ex-communistic society. Nobody talks about feelings. Nobody talks about, identity. Nobody talks about that deep, soft stuff. But yeah, I would hyper focus on all of those frames that I had accumulated throughout life, all those stories that I told myself throughout life that weren't necessarily true, all of those things and parts of my identity, or all those traumas that I just kind of like toughened up and pushed off to the side. And I would go laser focus on that. Now, practically, like, how would you do that? There's a lot of like, just like being hungry for mindset stuff. So like you mentioned Jim Rohn, but there's a ton of books like, going to like Tony Robbins events could be like another way, like curating your social media. Like social media is like the, I guess, devil of society now. It doesn't have to be that way. It's the devil because you're not controlling it, but you can go through and follow different people and unfollow other people and curate your social media feed. So that way it pumps you up and it lifts you up versus pulling yourself down. Therapy is very valuable, which I think is one of those things where everybody thinks you have to be like a psychopath or whatever to have to go through therapy or do any of that kind of stuff. It's like, no, like you could be a completely normal person. And in fact, everybody should probably do it. Journaling, meditation, all that stuff. Because I think everything, like being obese is a symptom of a deeper root. Having a binge eating relationship is a deeper symptom of a different root, right? Drinking a lot of alcohol, not working out, like all these sicknesses that we physically have, there's a deeper root, I think, to most people. And a lot of times that root could be emotional, could be something that may have happened. And it could be silly. Like some people talk about trauma as just like this car accident that happened, XYZ. Trauma could be like your mom didn't want to hold your hand when you were 3. And at that moment in time, you told yourself that you're never going to allow that to happen again in your 3-year-old mind. And now subconsciously, you just think about that over and over and over again. And then that leads to you having X amount of relationship with people and then going to food to basically cure that, right? And then you're subconsciously realizing that, man, whenever I'm stressed, and that was me, I would go and eat. So yeah, I think like the biggest thing is those soft things that people don't want to talk about, especially being an Eastern European man. I think that's where I wish I would have gone 15 to 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When you discover personal development, there is no turning back. And it's interesting how people that are very resistant to this say, oh, those motivational speakers. you have to be close to the fire in order to stay warm.
Yep.
You being at a certain state and being able to stay there, you have to have, definitely a true shift in identity, and you have to feed that all the time.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it
And
is, mhm,
most people, when they think like they have to apply everything, and the thing like, oh, those motivational speakers, like, let's bucket all of them. Like, there's good coaches, bad coaches, there's good
right.
books, bad books, there's good functional medicine doctors or bad functional medicine doctors, there's great priests, there's crooked priests, right? The reality is, in every single bucket there's good and bad. What I recommend to everybody is, instead of being inflamed and just saying, oh, those XYZ, treat it as like you're going to a store buying clothes, and you're going and you find this cute little dress and you're trying it on. And then if it fits, you wear it. If it doesn't fit or you don't like it, you take it off. Right. So, like, if you heard something in this podcast that you like, go try it and then see if it fits you. And if it doesn't fit you, then just go throw it away. Like, people need to understand, like, you have every right to throw off a belief. Right. If you grew up in a household in Romania and there's certain beliefs there and you try them on and you like them, don't be ashamed that you're wearing your Romanian beliefs in American society. But if you don't like them and you don't agree with them, don't be ashamed that you're going to take them off and throw them away. So I think like that's super big too. But sorry to interrupt there.
Huge. That's huge because it's true. Like, people believe that they're a lot of them, right? What's in the past. And sometimes, of course, they don't realize that because that's, childhood trauma.
Yep.
And nobody knew about psychology, childhood psychology in the past, right? So, I mean, everybody behaved like, normal, I guess. But it's true. Oh, I'm not giving, you're not getting an ice cream today because you were not a good kid. And then that transforms into like, oh, I'm not worth it. Oh, and
Yep.
then I don't deserve, and so forth and so on. And that can lead to so many things. Or you can toss that belief because now you have an identity shift. But you have to have the power to change,
Yep.
right? And so yeah, it's amazing how experience changes us.
Yeah.
But the more open we are to embracing change, and the more focused we are on the goal and having a purpose, the more successful you are. What Tony Robbins said, right? Success without purpose, without fulfillment, is a failure, actually, right?
100%.
Absolutely. So, yeah, totally. And I guess that reward system of the society is so messed up.
Yeah.
So messed up.
Yeah. You get rewarded for well, not the wrong things. I think there's different levels,
Right.
but yeah. Sometimes you get dopamine rushes or reward rushes from things that aren't all that good. So
Mm-mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And journaling, again, in an Eastern European mind
yeah.
set, it's like, what? Journaling? I'm the weak person. It's not about weakness. It's about power, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to learn
Well,
that. You have to accept
there
that.
are people though. So here's the thing, like, a lot of these perspectives we have come from, like, fundamentally, you shouldn't take advice from the people that you don't want to become, right? And what happens is, a lot of times, right, we surround ourselves with a community of people, right? Again, using the Romanian example, we're surrounding ourselves with the Romanians, right, or whatnot. And we take the advice or we take those paradigms from those people, but we aspire to live a different life than those specific people, right? So, and then it's like, yeah, if you aspire to live a different life, then go surround yourself by the people that are living that life. And what you'll find, Tim Ferriss wrote The Tools of the Titans, right? Which was basically all of his podcasts he put into a book. It's super thick, like 700 pages long. And it's like people who literally were overachievers and all kinds, like Oprah's in there, like all kinds of different, specialties. And all of them talk about some sort of meditative practice. All of them talk about some sort of journaling practice. All of them talk about some sort of, visualization, goal setting, stuff like that. It's like, okay, cool. What do I trust? Do I trust my Eastern European stigma over journaling, or do I trust what these people did? Well, it comes down to, what do I want to live? do I want to live, Johnny from I don't know where's life, which could have been great, could have been bad. I'm not going to judge it. We're not saying bad or good. We're just saying, what do I desire? Do I desire to live that life? Great. Then I'll take his advice. Do I desire to live the other life? Great. I'll take that person's advice. And then sometimes you'll find a person who has a certain thing, like has the money or has the body, but doesn't have something else, will only take their advice in the area that they are a superstar in. Right. So I'm not like, one of the biggest things I had an aha moment was I had a overweight personal trainer. And I was like, wait, hang on a sec. Right. Like this guy, I have a better body than this guy. Why? And he was slightly overweight, so I'm like, and then I plateaued. And one of my friends was like, dude, like, show me a picture of your trainer. Here's my trainer. It's like, to get to the next level, go hire the ex Mr. Olympia. But that doesn't mean you take parenting advice from that person. You see what I'm saying? Because that he might not be the best parent. So go find the person who's the best parent, who shows up the best. And I have, Matt, who's my program director, who I think is a phenomenal parent. That's the person I take parenting advice, right? Not even my own parents, right? Like I take certain advice from my parents of things that I think they're amazing at. So it's very important to be very selective on whose beliefs you subscribe to, and you have the right to subscribe to certain beliefs, and you have the right to unsubscribe to certain beliefs. So
Absolutely. It's not all or none. Definitely
yeah.
not.
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Has your becoming a parent changed anything in your purpose and goals?
I don't necessarily know how to answer that, because like I've always had a strong purpose, and even right now my purpose in life is higher than the nucleus of my family. So like being a parent, I've always wanted to be a parent. I always wanted to have kids, but like some people who say, hey, my purpose in life is just for my kids, like sure, that's great, but like a lot of people could have a purpose that's even bigger than that and could still show up as amazing parents. So yeah, I don't know if like having a kid has added more purpose to my life. I absolutely love my daughter. I love the fact that I'm a parent. We have baby number 2 on the way. I've always wanted kids. But yeah, I feel like my purpose is, well, my purpose, to distill it simply, is build the best version of myself and then pour that best version into the world. Right. And I see that impact being greater than just my family nucleus. Right. And then I want to also train my family, i.e. my kids, to leave that back onto the world. And then part of that little sliver is the fundamental belief of, everybody thinks it's about what kind of world you leave for your kids, but I think it's what kind of kids you leave to the world. Because in a couple of generations, all the money I possibly made will all be gone. But the stories of the types of kids that are creating the types of kids that are creating the types of kids are the roots that will be left behind. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question per se, but that's how I view, and I know it's a more non-conventional, yes, my life changed ever since I have kids. Like, yes, but that's how I see it.
Absolutely. I mean, that was so beautifully said. Definitely, we want to make an impact in the world, and definitely, yeah, that's the legacy, right? To help your children make an impact and make an impact and make an impact. If they make an impact on the world, of course they're going to make an impact on their families, because
Yep.
That's the rule of the game. Absolutely. So, if you were to write a letter to yourself at age 40, how would you describe your life at that point?
I would say a life of unlimited creation that I never have to retire from. I would say effortless. Yeah, effortless creation. Just like, yeah, that's how I would describe it. Um, and that's kind of like this year's theme is, he who does not need anything cannot be controlled. So like what I'm chasing now is, I think each and every one of us exists in this world. We have a purpose, call it, that some people chase, and whether you know it or not, right? Like you exist in this world, you're given certain skill sets, you're animated in a certain way. Like that's one thing I learned from when my daughter was born. the second she came out of the womb, I like saw her personality and saw her vibrance and stuff like that. You have a certain, don't want to get religious or whatever, but like a certain soul constitution, a certain soul animation that comes out, and you're special for a specific reason. And I think what we should be chasing, or there's certain levels of, chasing. And if you look at like even Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's there. But like at the very top, it's you're able to be fully expressed and you're able to create unlimitedly, infinitely, and you're able to experience and impact till you take your last breath, right? Like everything is full, everything is rich. And it should be effortless. Like that doesn't mean you don't go through struggles. But like if you look at it like this, like monks don't suffer no matter what happens to them, right? So like you could still ride the waves of life, you can still go through highs and lows and the challenges and such, but you're not suffering, you're effortless, you're grounded, and then you're also creating, right? Because that's what we exist. That's why mankind, like if you ask yourself the question, why are we in the stage where we're at right now, where we have all of these things, and look at where we started 2000 years ago, like it's in our DNA to evolve, it's in our DNA to expand, and each and every one of us has a path, and every one of us has a different path, right? So yeah, I think it's that.
Beautiful. Yeah. This is amazing. I mean, that would be a life like wonderfully lived, right?
Yeah.
So it's amazing. And transfer that to your children, we're multiplying that.
Yeah. One thing I appreciate about you too is like you're always like a busy bee. Like I can't imagine like if I were at your stage, right? Or actually me, I'd probably be the same, but like society will look at you and be like, hey, doc, like you've had such a long career within medicine and stuff like that. Why are you still a busy bee? But you're clearly passionate about this. And I congratulate you too to say, hey, I don't want to do the hamster wheel of the medical system. I actually enjoy spending time with my clients and teaching and going deeper and stuff like that. And despite what everybody thinks of medicine, I'm going to go on this self-pay, move away from the system route. And I actually encourage a lot of other professionals to do that. I see it, the industry I come from is damage restoration. I'm actually encouraging restoration contractors to do the same, because in restoration, a small percentage like follow the hamster wheel of insurance, and that's a bad hamster wheel, right? And then there's the mass majority that just focus on the customer themselves and delivering the most. And I think, kudos to you for saying, hey, I'm not done. Hey, I'm going to keep going and such. And I think that that's probably going to tie to your longevity, because you feel like you have a purpose and you're doing stuff, versus most think, you get to a certain point and then you start laying the foot off the gas because the end is coming. So
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. But yeah, no, I cannot even think about retirement. I mean, I don't know what that means actually, because it's true. Creation is the purpose and impact. So as long as we can keep going with that, that's worth it. That keeps you so fulfilled and happy and fills up. It's like a fuel, right? You have more and more energy. So yeah, it's a wonderful thing. Life is a wonderful thing. As long as
definitely
you
is.
know how to live it, right? Live it to the fullest.
100%.
Super. Thank you so much, Alex. It's been a
Absolutely.
pleasure. I think everybody that listens to this podcast is going to be inspired. And I hope that, this opens the heart and minds to a lot of young people and not so young. It definitely is never too late. Okay.
Yeah.
It's never too late, but just change, open, embrace purpose, creation, and look at all the areas of your life, put them at the same level, on the same pedestal, so that you can really achieve what you ever dreamed of. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you, Doc. Really appreciate you having me on this podcast.
My pleasure.